Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237 as I continue my marathon of 80s slasher films. And this time I got 1989's Hell High, which I saw for free on YouTube. This is kind of an interesting film to talk about because by the mid 80s, slashers had become they were on their way down for magnitude of reasons. Probably fatigue, uh, people tired of seeing them, they'd done everything, sequels were the only ones really being made. So they became self-referential, self-parody, or very rare cases, like in this one, a complete dismantling of the slasher film, which I'll get into. It was directed by Douglas Grossman, who also produced the film with David Steinman, and he co-wrote it with Leo Evans. And it stars literally no one. I mean, the one name I can click on was a guy who was in a few TV shows. Episodes of One Life to Live, a couple episodes of Breaking Bad. And the story is very simple. There's this high school biology teacher who she's harassed, pranked, and attacked by a group of her students, and she kills them. That simple premise, okay, so that's the film. But when you look at the aspects of it, like, it follows a very familiar formula within the slasher can have a few different formulas. One of which is, okay, opens up some years ago, a traumatic event happens, years pass, we're in present day, some sort of triggering event happens that causes the killer to go on a killing spree. And then we usually have the final girl at the end. Here, it opens up with this young girl. She has her doll. She's playing in this shack down by the swamp. This high school couple shows up to have sex in the shack. The girlfriend doesn't really like it. Boyfriend gets pissed, acts like an asshole. They get on his bike to go leave. The girl takes a bucket of swamp slime to splash it on him. The bike wrecks. They flip off. They land on some sort of spikes, goes right through them, and they die right in front of her. So that's the traumatic event. Oh, and this movie is gratuitous as all hell with its nudity, like to the point where it's almost like, okay, let's keep moving. Like, but for those that love it, 80s gratuitous nudity, this is the movie for you. So then 18 years later, she's a biology teacher. You can already tell she's unhinged and sort of on edge. Her students just giving her a rough time. This one in particular student named Dickens. Well, the teacher, Miss Storm, is played by Maureen Moody. Dickens is played by Christopher Stryker. They're taking a test. She has him collect it. He throws him in the air, gets in her face, and she slaps him. And of course, that pisses him off. And he's sort of the leader of this group of rejects. There's him. There's this girl, sort of new wave girl, Queenie. This heavier set guy, Smiler, who's just obnoxious, just constantly laughing. And they recruit this new guy, John, played by Christopher Cousins, who was the guy that was in some TV shows. He was not quarterback. He was on the football team, but he quit, so now he's like the school coward. And basically, all they do is cause hate and discontent. But this guy Dickens is pretty much a blooming sociopath, a fucking psychopath. Starts out with him just goofing off in class, and by the time we get to like the major events of the film, it's like, okay, this dude's a complete fucking psycho. Um, Before I get too heavy into the plot, I will say, as a slasher film, I can't say it's very good. Because, I mean, we have like 3 kills. I mean, with the opening 2 deaths, we have 5 deaths. 3 kills from our actual killer. And it's all within like 10 minutes of each other towards the end. So, which you do find with a lot of these slashers, it spends a lot of time with its story. Then it truncates the kills at the very end. Like some of the ones that I've reviewed recently. But this one's a bit different. I mean, I would almost, this is going to be a bold statement. This is almost like, and I mean, this is an obscure slasher. There's hardly any reviews for this here on YouTube. But had this been bigger, this could be looked at as like what Watchmen did as the deconstruction of a superhero comic book. This did for slashers, because it takes the formula, completely reconfigures it. Because our killer is sympathetic. Like the start of the film, I think it wants us to think, oh, this is just a really bitchy teacher. But no, we get the idea that she is barely hanging on and her students are assholes. And then, just as it goes on, we find out she's just more and more unhinged and just, again, barely there. And one night, or that night after the game, Dickens decides to pull a prank on Miss Storm. Well, earlier, him and John go to her house and they watch her shower through a window with a very long scene of her soaping herself. But the prank is they go to the swamp, they get these trash bags of slime, they go to her house, they all wear a mask, they jump around on her roof, so when she comes out, they dump the slime on her. And then, they make faces through the window with the masks. But that's not it. It does go a little bit further. And she suffers a mental breakdown. And it's not quite a slasher like Maniac or Don't Go in the House, where the killer is the main focus. It's not a character study. We do follow the victims. We do follow the main group of characters. But it's also not like a Friday the 13th or The Burning or My Bloody Valentine, where the killer just pops up to kill. So it's sort of right in the middle of that. But it's a killer that we sympathize with. And I know people will say, well, I sympathize with Jason because they're all douchebags. I like it. We get it. But, I mean, from a realistic standpoint, this is someone you can sympathize with. And the real psychopath is one of our main characters. And he doesn't kill anybody. He's just a sociopathic high school student. The first one to get killed is the girl. And our final girl is actually the guy that quit the football team. So it follows the formula almost perfectly as far as structure. Traumatic event, years past, present day, some sort of triggering event, they get killed, final person. And the final person isn't the one that stops the killer. In fact, the killer doesn't even really get found out, which I'll talk about when I get into spoilers, if I haven't already spoiled enough. But I'll get into spoilers now. But before I do, again, if you're gonna watch this, like you're gonna watch a Friday the 13th film, then you're gonna be disappointed. It's not a huge body count film. It's not a blood and guts film, although there is some blood. The kills when they are there are decent. I guess the one I can compare it to the most as far as like sympathetic, because been wronged and we can see where the killer's coming from, is Slaughter High. Although this, it is presented in a much darker tone, because Slaughter High is pretty much a slasher self-parody. But this has a much darker tone to it, a lot more mean-spirited. But if you like slashers that also focus on story, but can have good kills and it takes its time getting to them, then I can say check it out. But if you're a kill a minute kind of slasher fan, you're not gonna like it. So I would even say as a slasher film, it's not that good. But I liked what it did with, you know, the tropes and the cliches, that it kept my attention, and I liked the story anyway. So it was enough to keep me invested. I actually enjoyed this film. So spoilers. After they cover her with slime and they've traumatized her, they go to leave. One of her friends stops by, gets her cleaned up, then she leaves. The three of them are waiting in the car for Dickens to show up so they can leave, but he's still in the house. And she's in bed, and he attempts to rape her. Sits on top of her, feels her up. He even lifts his mask, which shows he wants her to know that it's him. More of his sociopathy, I can only assume. And then this is where it gets really weird, because then Queenie comes up to see what the hell he's doing. She stops him, but then she starts getting in on it. So that he wants more. Then the other two guys come up. Then she tries to stop him. So it's just, I think her character's a little inconsistent. John, the football guy, is the one that tries to get him to stop. They fight. She is so broken that she just dives out the window, and they think she's dead. So the next course of action is they send John to the diner to get a piece of the quarterback's clothing so they can plant it and he'll get in trouble. Again, this was Dickens' idea, because they're all panicking and he's just sitting there on the car like, And you get a little bit of a car and a motorcycle chase with John and these other jocks, because they kind of caught him stealing his jersey to plant. But this is when, and Dickens is getting more and more angry. Like, you can't talk back to him or anything, because he'll just throw you around. I thought the actor did an okay job. I thought the acting was fine for what it was, you know, a B-80s slasher film. Queenie goes to leave, and then that's when she gets killed. She gets hit in the head a bunch of times with a rock. And then Smiler is killed with a pencil to the temple, which I like that shot. He goes up the stairs, she comes out and stabs him, and I like this shot. It's like behind him, there's darkness from the upstairs behind him and the light shining through from downstairs. He's kind of stumbling. Then there's like that GoPro shot as he's dying. Then she gets a hold of Dickens. Of course, he pleads for his life. He even screams like a girl at one point. She has him tied up shirtless. She's gonna cut him up. And then that's when John John comes in, and it's funny, kid. Like I said, there's no final girl. Killer doesn't get, you know, the survivor doesn't stop the killer, because he kind of, once he frees Dickens, I don't know if Dickens jumps on top of her or if he falls on her, but she has the fire poker. He lands on it, and when he lands, he's holding a kitchen knife and it slits her throat. So they both die simultaneously. Then the next day at school, he's sitting there. The cops come in, they arrest the jock because he did plant the jersey. And then he's haunted by the image of that teacher, you know, yelling at him in class. So it's like they didn't even know about, like, the killing spree, I guess. Or, like, they figured all the deaths on him, the other jock. So even though it's very low on the body count, I mean, the deaths look decent as far as blood goes. But, like, you have so little so close together at the end. I would have preferred if, you know, maybe if the group of friends was larger, or if there was more people going out to her house, like her friend or the coach that she was supposedly at the game with, and he was trying to get laid. If she had snapped sooner and killed more people, like, if more deaths, more spread out. That's always good for a slasher. Otherwise, I would have changed the story, or even really the pacing of everything else. I thought everything else worked just fine. What really kept me invested was the story, but also just really how it did dismantle and deconstruct the formula and the cliches that we know about slasher films. It mixed, it gave us a cliche formulaic slasher film, but by mixing all the cliches up. So, like, it's like all the puzzle pieces fit, but they're all different colors. So it's, I hope that makes sense. But I actually enjoyed it. If it had, I don't know if it's right to say this movie was that clever or if it just came out that way. I like to think it was clever enough to do it that differently. I know with some of my more recent reviews, I've complained and even made rants about how too little kills, not enough blood, which for a slasher, that's what you need. That's what makes a slasher. But sometimes it can work if you have a strong or good enough story to go through with the characters that work with it, which I thought this one did. And it just had that nice little touch of saying, you know what, let's give them a slasher film, but let's just tweak everything up about it so it's fresh and different. And I actually liked that. So Hell High, I can say I enjoyed it. I'm glad I checked it out. But anyway, thanks for watching.